100 membership professionals about what life is like in the membership space in 2022. So we were asking them these kind of business level questions. Is your membership growing or shrinking? Where are you seeing your competitors coming from? Who's having it away with your members and eating your lunch? Is there a gap between what members are expecting, because people are expecting more and more these days, and what you're able to achieve, and what are the big changes? Some people have talked about the kind of Uberization of what people expect out of membership, and what are you seeing coming down the track for you as a membership body? So we had a summary on the challenges. First of all, some fairly common themes came out from membership organisations. One of them could be summarised in this kind of narrative response that we got, which is where people feel that members are largely ignoring what's coming out of the membership body. So we're sending out all of this stuff in a spray and pray way, and very little of it is getting any kind of take up and getting very little response. Worse than that, we don't even know which members are reading which content because we don't have an overview of the data. If you look at the email, you can see that this proportion of people read it, but you don't know who they are, and you can't relate it to membership types or their age or their demographics, which means you have very little information to go on. So a lot of people ignoring a lot of what's going out. And then we started to reflect with membership organisations about the good old days, you know, how it used to work, because as part of doing that, we then have to look at how it works now. So in the good old days, membership organisations found themselves as the only source of professional information to their members. So going back relatively recently, even the early 2000s, that kind of tack, really people look to their membership body for sources of what's going on in their profession, what's going on in industry, and what's going on in the wider world relating to membership. Content that was produced by the membership organisations tended to be relatively basic, and relatively seldom, but it had a high degree of take up. One survey respondent likened it to having BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV. Since there were only those three, you know, they got a huge amount of take up. Now we all have 300 channels, less take up. We have to respond to that. Then, of course, the only source of member community and member networking was previously through the membership body. So that was another reason to stay engaged with your membership body. It was another reason to remain a member. That was the only source of you being able to talk to your fellows in the profession in the main. And then, of course, networking only came through those kind of channels at the events from the membership body. And then finally, membership organisations, to a much greater extent than they do today, used to have more of a monopoly position on things like CPD, on things like qualifications and training. It wasn't that no one else could provide it. It was that competitors hadn't recognised yet that there was a lot of money to be made in your space, and hadn't yet tried to start selling into your space. So that's what it was like up to perhaps up to about 10 years ago.
I'm monitoring Nikki's emails while she's off, and a couple of people have already come back. Do you want me to record them on the spreadsheet in the awards folder, or did Nikki have one somewhere else?
Sorry about this, everyone.
No, what she was doing was just forwarding them over to me. So
Sorry, just a reminder. Yes, please, if you can mute on the webinar if you're not a speaker. So yeah, easily done. Okay, so moving on from there. What we then have, of course, again, up until even 10 years ago, people thought that if you were changing Dear Bob to Dear Sarah, you were personalising. Of course, everyone on this call knows that that's no longer appropriate and no longer satisfactory. So what we then have is a reflection through personas. A lot of membership organisations and membership professionals who we've spoken to have reflected it in the persona of let's recognise the modern member. And of course, there's a persona of the member who's midway through their professional career, and the persona who's a younger person coming into membership. And there's a lot of commonality. So this person, if we take the persona of the midway through her career, she's a modern digital consumer. She has very high expectations from any organisation she relates to. She doesn't actually care about her membership body very much. You're a terribly tiny part of her life. Unfortunately, you know, we've got to be humble about that. And unless we make it incredibly easy for her, she's unlikely to engage very much with us. She's used to everything being highly personalized, and this includes things that she signs up for free, you know, that the people who aren't taking her money are still being highly personalized and relevant to her. And she knows where to get an awful lot of what a membership body offers without having to pay money to you for your help. So there's obviously a risk element attached to Sarah in 2022, but of course the main thing is that she's our biggest opportunity. If we can prove the value to her, then of course we can do all sorts of things with that relationship. This is what we're hearing over and over from membership professionals who recognise the challenge. The problem is they're stuck in how to respond to it. So the new normal that membership professionals are faced with is there are a lot of free alternatives. There are lots of different ways that people can get those things that they could previously only get through their membership body. So some examples that were cited to us were, for instance, things like Accounting Web. Now, Accounting Web has an audience of something like 1 million people. It's provided for free. It offers things like community for people. It offers training offerings, and of course most of that is commercially driven. If you're offering accounting or financial training and you can go to somewhere that has that as an audience, then of course you'll pay tens of thousands of pounds to advertise in that audience. You can also see that they spend a lot of time and effort being current. They spend a lot of time and effort being the place where people go to actually have the conversation. If the Chancellor gets up in Parliament and says something that affects the accounting or financial profession, then of course people come here and have the conversation about what's happened. Well, of course, membership bodies need and want those conversations to happen at their own website, you know, to come there and have the conversation. Another example that's often cited is networks like Mumsnet, which is not just various cliches that get attached to things like Mumsnet. It's actually a lobbying and campaigning organization about empowering women, including highly expert professional women, you know, all of that cliche bashing stuff. So this is where people come to have all sorts of conversations relating to the profession, relating to politics, relating to lobbying and campaigning. Again, things that only membership bodies used to offer in the past, and a lot of traffic goes that way. And you could argue deservedly so. So you might say, all right, well, what has Mumsnet got to do with the membership profession? Well, there are quite a significant number of membership organisations that might be able to set you right on that. These are organisations that offer networking, community training, professional development, and they've in the last 10 years they've had to respond to those organizations, those offerings being made elsewhere. And actually some of these organizations have responded fantastically well to that. So an organization like Pacey, for instance, has modernized entirely. If you can go to their website, you can engage in networking and conversation with your peers. There's a kind of Pinterest offering where you can tag content that's relevant to you and create your own folder as part of that. And what they're then doing is they're mounting that fight back through those kind of channels. And if you think childcare professionals like to talk to each other a lot, well, they're like monks who've taken a vow of silence compared to people in the finance world. So all of these membership organizations have also had to respond to a change in the membership space to be more personalized, more relevant, and to allow community and networking as a result of those changes. So and of course what we've also seen is that members are going off and self-serving. If you as a membership body don't offer community, don't offer engagement and current news and an ability to update yourselves, well then we've seen a lot of membership bodies where the members have gone off and set up LinkedIn groups completely out of control of the membership body, and of course that takes traffic away as well. So some of the key questions that we're seeing from membership professionals is how to fight back about that, how to respond to all of that, and how to tackle one of the key things that we've seen is the relevance gap. So in the days where you could send a membership card once a year and a newsletter, then relevance, you could be fairly complacent about that. But these days it means an awful lot more. So the challenges that membership organizations are having is that they're not able to respond because they don't have an overview of the member. They don't know what the members are actually interested in. And then the result of that is that members go off and self-serve. And within your organization, people are spending their whole time combating the lack of data and not able to respond to changes in the market. So essentially, this is one of the most common messages. Everyone on this call, I think, is a relatively experienced, the majority membership professional, that you know where the challenges are, you know what you'd like to do, but people are stuck in how to respond to it. Part of the reasons that people are stuck tends to be cultural. We have different business areas, different colleagues not talking to each other because they're all doing different specialized things and using different specialized systems to do it. Sometimes people say it's my data, not yours. And of course, sometimes they're spending their whole time trying to reconcile all of these differences. And it means that they're not able to represent themselves properly to members online or represent themselves properly when it comes to content and personalization. So the reality of all of that, yes, specialized business areas being treated almost like separate organizations as far as the member is concerned, and the member doesn't care about your separate business areas. Then, of course, data everywhere, but no information. And the consequences of that tend to be it's near impossible to get that single view of the truth. Staff are frustrated, and we've seen real world effects like high turnover of staff because people know when they're wasting their time. And the result of all of that is tending to be a kind of crisis in the membership world where organizations are stuck, innovation is stifled, and organizations are finding it extremely difficult to respond to those real world challenges. On the positive side, however, there are a lot of organizations that are pathfinding the way forward and are showing best practice ways of fighting back and are being more successful than they've ever been. So with that in mind, we'd like to do a quick survey, if possible, please. So we're just going to put up some questions to see what of these challenges do you recognize as an organization. It's all anonymous. And if you could respond to the survey so that we can see how much of that is relevant to you as an organization, please. So, and if you're not seeing the survey in front of you, you'll see it in the chat from the survey. So, yep, and we'll just give it a few more seconds to respond to that. And then what we're seeing actually is most organizations are recognizing the great majority of those challenges, and in fact are struggling to show value to their members. So you're a representative crowd, and don't worry, you're not the Lone Rangers on those challenges. Thank you very much for that. So I'm just going to pass back to Steve to talk about what other organizations are doing in relation to these challenges.
Thanks, Alan, very much. And also the results of the survey, as you say, it's the sort of spread of results that we see in all of the organisations that we talk to. So Alan set the scene. I'm going to talk about, as he says, those positive approaches that help you address the issues that stop you getting your business. So I'm going to talk about good, and then we're going to talk about how to get from good to great. So this is a nice summary that one of our customers has said. So, a good system for us is one that enables our strategy and engages our members. And that's I couldn't think of a better example, which is why I've used that. So what should good be giving you? So I'm sure every organization has clearly defined goals. And here are some good examples of those that we hear all of the time. And what we're going to do is talk about enablement. So What's the difference between a goal and a strategy? Well, in our view, it's the word how. How do you build a strategy, and what do you do to deliver that strategy which meets all of those goals, or the goals that you want? So the first thing that we see, as Alan has shown, is systems evolved. Systems might be Excel spreadsheets, they might be Access databases, they might be quite large, comprehensive solutions, but often they're disparate in different departments with different variations of quality, not integrated, and all of the issues that Alan addressed about one view of the truth, reporting, analysis, and so on. So step one is start to, or build a platform. So what we do is we integrate over time, evolving a solution which is one platform, delivering the various functions that you need, sharing data across one database, and enabling you to essentially start to put processes behind them. But the core is get your staff to stop fighting the systems and start being able to have systems that support them in their goals, in their day-to-day activities of delighting members, delivering benefits at the point of use, and therefore reaching your overall goals and your business strategy. So that's the core entry point, and that platform then can clearly integrate to your website, a member portal, and so on. But it avoids spreadsheets. It avoids manual workarounds, and it means that you've got single versions of the truth. Sorry, I'm getting some funny feedback. Is that me? Or okay. So single version of the truth, and it starts to mean that you're focused on the key goals that you need to aim at. Second part is business automation. So very simple system solution here, which a very simple example here, which I won't go into any detail about, but we'll be building upon this, which is why I'm starting with a simple one. So someone's joined, you're inviting them to an event, they'll either accept or they'll say no, but a third response, which quite often isn't handled, is they don't respond at all. So what we're going to do about that? Well, a very basic system will send a nice email out saying, thanks for joining, here's how you get there. You couldn't join, but would you like to join another reason? Why didn't you join? But what does your system then do with the responses about that? Is it a manual intervention you then need to get them to the new event on August the 5th? And what do you do about those that still aren't interested? And finally, those people that don't respond at all, we don't see a lot of activity around those. Now, these are new joiners in this scenario. What are you going to do about them? I'm not going to answer that now. We're going to come to that later on. Third part, good, effective personalisation. So what does that mean? So the old days are, it means, dear Steve, here's your address, here's a letter, or here's an email. That's not what we're talking about anymore. This is about making sure you only send a particular member information that's relevant to their specific interests, and you can evolve that over time. So that content needs to be conditional in the messages that you're sending. So it could be paragraph substitution and so on. But the core is that you need to drive your communications out of that data, and you need to learn what your members are interested in and what they're not interested in, and then drive data based upon that. So that's where the platform comes in, because only then can you collect the data, drive the comms, and start to personalize properly. And an example, this is the Royal Statistical Society, but their member portal. You can see here there's a panel for member details where they can update their own information. There's the preferences where they can say, well, look, this is what I'm interested in. They can edit these interests and tag themselves. And we'll look at what that tagging can achieve for you, because how that reflects in the dynamic system behind this is that this is an example of a typical contact record, but you can see this lady says, I'm interested in these subjects, and here are the different tags that I've connected because I want to be involved in research, I want to be part of your connection program, and so on. And that's where you can start to say, this content might be relevant for her, these events might be relevant for her, and that drives your personalized communications. So moving on, what are the table stakes? What are the entry points for a good platform, a good system? So summarizing what we've just covered, you need a sound business strategy, which I'm sure you have in place, but the system needs to then enable that. So what are the constituent parts? Integrated platform, so no disparate systems, no manual workarounds. Member self-service, so the ability to start to do a lot of stuff yourself, but also profile yourself, state your interest and get personalized information. And then that's handled by streamlined processes and workflows. So those are the basics of any system that we put into place in our customer base. And that's what starts to enable you to move to good. We'll now do a second survey. So it's a question around what do you have as your current technology setup. So Ahmed, if you'd like to publish that in the chat, then we can gauge some responses on that and see where that gets us. So we're starting to get responses through, and I mean, essentially, there's a big rush on disconnected systems and some relatively new ones, which are people are struggling to get to work, but you know, quite often it takes time for these things to bed in, and you know, these are evolutions and so on. But that's a good spread. Most organisations are in the middle ground, with 14% in, yep, we've got a great system, and 14% on, you know, we've got a very old system with lots of workarounds. So it's good because what we're seeing is the space is evolving better into more modern systems, because previously most people were saying, yeah, we're down the far end of this. So moving on to the next start. So we've covered good. How do we get to great? And what does that mean? So essentially, it's building on those table stakes, the entry points for good. What can you then start to do to layer on top of that to really engage and stimulate your membership base? So the first part of what great should give you is really effective personalization. I talked about basic. Now we're talking about taking that to a different level. And a lot of this is about why do people join you? What are the benefits they expect? How does your system deliver those benefits for them? And also make sure that they're using those benefits. Because if you're delivering them but they're not being picked up, do you know that? And then can you change the benefits or the way you're providing those benefits to start much better engagement? So we'll start to walk through some of the ways that we can help support that next step. So good was integrated platform and personalization and so on. What we're going to do now is talk a lot more around member journeys and member engagement. Back to the simple example, we had accept yes, no I can't come, no response at all. What we're now going to do is take from that simple email system and add what are called member journeys. So member journeys are essentially intelligent, programmable workflows, and I'll explain what a very simple one looks like here. But this is a scenario where, as we explained, someone's a new joiner, you send them emails to invite them to a new joiner event, and you can see there are decision points. So have they registered? If so, and then they attend the event, you know, say thank you for coming, say sorry we missed you. If they don't attend, you can now, using this, see if they've opened your email at all. If they have but haven't responded, you send them a follow-up. If they haven't opened it at all, then maybe you ring them up or you maybe email them again. So you can see that this is something that happens in the background based upon people who are in a list of first-year joiners. And some key points about these is these journeys are clever. They can make decisions. They can trigger lots of different types of actions. asking me to call you, send an email, change something on a website, update some data fields and so on within my record. So what they're like is having a member of staff just focused on this particular segment of your member base. So first year joiners in this example. So someone's just sitting there waiting to do stuff for them. In this case, get them to an event, but it can be a lot more complicated than this and a lot more powerful than this, moving them from first year joiners to greatly engaged advocates of your organisation and so on. And I'll give you some examples of other journeys in a minute. And also, based upon the interaction with these people, as you can update data within the database, that means you can qualify them to different journeys as well. So first year joiners may become real advocates of special interest groups. They may become disengaged and therefore go on the list of people that need special attention so that they renew at the end of the year. And what that gives you, therefore, is the ability to start to take different actions. So we can now deal with those that don't respond at all by saying, here's our follow-up plan, and actually, if that doesn't work, then we can call them as well. So you've got a lot more power here because you're able to ask different staff to do different things automatically, or you're able to just handle reactions automatically without staff involvement. Some other attributes of member journeys, not only as in good, did we have the ability to just start engagement, but member journeys can react on behaviour. So they can track where you decide the things that you want to be able to track about your membership. So have they gone to the website? Have they dwelled on this page particularly? Have they looked at that page, and that page in combination? So therefore you can infer they're interested about this particular subject. Have they looked at special interest groups? Have they participated in them? Are they part of a networking forum and discussion group and so on and so on? So you can track an awful lot of behaviour way past just the simple, did they open an email and did they click on a link? And this is really, really powerful. But we'll come on to in a minute where this becomes super powerful is when you start to look across your different channels. So you're tracking behaviour, you're reacting to that behaviour, you can change data within your system, and then the updating of data means that you can then start to drive different behaviour, different interactions with particular members. And of course, you can also use any lists in the traditional way, so you can drive journeys based upon classic marketing lists. And some examples of member journeys. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I've mentioned first year joiners, but you could be looking for potential volunteers, people that are clearly active in a particular area of interest, but you have got a special interest group. How do you drive that forwards? One that's key that we don't see a lot around is lapsed members. So the ability to follow up on people that have lapsed, ask them why they lapsed, see what you can do to get them back in again, see what you can do in your journeys for your current members to make sure that that lapsing behaviour is learned from and doesn't happen with current members, and so on. Also here, handling demography. This is quite a thing we see a lot. A number of organisations' membership is getting older and older, and they're not getting the new young groups in at the bottom. So organisations drive a lot of students or a lot of younger members as a demographic change, and that's a key goal that a lot of systems that we provide are aimed at. So those are some examples of journeys. Back to our good, effective personalisation that we spoke about, or I spoke about 10 minutes ago or so. How do we change that? Well, what we're going to do is try and make that into better, effective communication. And the core part of that, which the journeys give you, is the behavioural tracking. So not only are we sending out information based upon what we think we know about you or what you've told us you're interested in, but Mr. Member, we're also now able to react to your behaviour. What reactions have you given to the actions that we send out? And what are we going to do about them? Did you click through? Did you go to websites? Did you clearly express interest or inferred interest in particular areas that we do? Have you consumed the key benefits that were those that you said you joined us for in the first place? So great. Moves that to a stage further, which is what we'll talk about in a minute. So it's about giving people not only the ability to consume and engage with you, but being able to do that on multiple channels and being able to define which channels you're most interested in. So a good platform can support all of these different channels. And a good example of why that's important is you may have perfected your email techniques. You may send perfectly crafted, personalized emails out to people, which drive them to the website, and then you give exactly the same web message to everyone, whether they're members, prospective members, other stakeholders, general visitors. Your website isn't tailorable, isn't customizable, and doesn't have the same intelligence built in. That's what I'm talking about in terms of being able to manage different channels. And a good example or a scenario here, in the middle, our systems are based on Dynamics 365, but that's able to then sit and control communications across all of these different channels, and different members will be interested in different ones of those. Different demographies will be interested in different channels. So if you're really trying to aim for the 20 to 30s group, you really need to think about whether they're going to keep reacting to classic emails, or whether you're going to have to go to different methods of communication with them. And again, back to the self-service portal for RSS, as I said, under preferences, you can start to say, well, I'm interested in these communication channels, but you can see in the block up the top here, this lady here is a fellow. She's been a member for a long time, but because she's a fellow, we're giving her a targeted message which says, well, look, as you're a fellow, you're now eligible to this new area, which says you can get grad stat or C stat. Now, I'm no expert in what those are, but those are particular strategies within RSS. And you can see the call for action here. So personalized message based on data through the web portal, and you can take immediate action on it there to apply or find out more information. So using the website intelligently. Another example through mobile apps. So three examples here. One's for the Bar Council, getting barristers into court easier. But the others are information provision, so it's around news devolving, and the one on the far right is about members visiting stately homes and historic houses. So enabling book visits and then get guided tours around to create much better engagement in what historic houses do, which is look after stately homes and get visitors in there. A nice example of where this is personalised is Askell, who you probably see on the news quite a lot, because they basically have two apps that we've developed with them. One is general news provision, and the second in green is much more around events, participating in the event, getting much more out of the event while you're there, not just looking at the event passively, but actively participating in it. And some examples of that are this column here, where you can see there's a lot of news feeds, and up the top are the tags that members will have put through the website saying, I'm interested in professional standards, I'm interested in strategic planning. So the app says, well, you'll be interested in this article because of those tags. And because you've got the tags displayed with the article, you can actually click more on strategic planning and see other things that are specific around that. So it starts to get you as a member much more personalized information. And of course, if the system's set up in such a way, you can track the fact that they're focusing more on strategic planning than, say, governors and trustees, and start to feed more of that information to them because it's clearly an area of interest higher than the governors and trustees area. On the far right corner, again, in-event stuff, but it's bringing out people that have got common interests, and it's got bringing out speakers that are talking about subjects that are of your common interest, those that you've tagged. So again, good personalisation, but delivered in an app rather than through the more traditional means. Now I'm going to move on to engagement. So this is the final part of the great part. So we have an app which is called Smart Engagement, and it's very powerful, and we think it's very clever. It's got a lot of clever stuff behind it. So at a very high level, what this is doing is looking at how a member interacts with you and at what level they're interacting. So yeah, it goes a lot further than this, but are they looking at your emails? Are they opening them? Are they looking at the website? Are they turning up to CPD events? Are they attending other training, and so on and so on? So you measure what they do, and that gives you a score. It's a lot more complicated than that, believe me, but at the simple level. And again, at a high level, what we're looking at is, are they consuming the benefits that they joined your organisation for in the first place? How are they reacting to your communications, and what other behavioural signals are there? And where that says 50, 20 and 30, all of these criteria, all of the measures of the criteria, and the percentage weighting of all of these are all completely tailorable. So we tailor the engagement tracking to every organisation that uses it based upon the specific things they're trying to achieve, and then it reacts accordingly. And if you want to know more about this, we have a nice guide on our website, so you can download it, or you can contact me and I can email it to you. What this means, and here's an example screen. This isn't someone real. How this works in the system is you get a simple, and again, we can tailor how this looks, but in this scenario, a simple score of where are they between 1,000 and 0, depending on the different criteria we set. But on the right, we have this traffic lighting system, because in this scenario, this organisation wanted to understand how is payment up to date. So the pounds are green because they're up to date. The yellow box, the orange box is, are these people attending many events? What's the ratio of events that they're attending, and how long since the last one? So that's come out as orange because they're not doing as much of that as you'd want. Red is website and member portal participation, isn't happening. So again, a flag here. And the green one is how well are they keeping up their CPD. So the point of having it as a traffic light there, and together with this spending analysis, is if you're talking to them, this at a glance shows you some things you might want to bring the conversation round to. If you're not talking to them, this can feed into the member journeys I've talked about before to start to try to drive behavioural change. Come more to our events, go to the website and participate a lot more, update your preferences on the member portal, because this all can trigger activities within those different journeys. And where that results is back to our ongoing scenario. Not only are we reacting to people, putting them on journeys, but this is where you then say, and add 5 to their score because they've accepted this, subtract 2, subtract 10, depending on what you want to do. So again, it's just adding more analysis to drive journeys which help drive behavioural change in the different types of member groups that you've got. So in summary, how do we raise our game from where you are to good and now to great? So there are 3 main pillars. First one, member journey automation. It goes a lot further than the simple email workflows that we talked about before. It's like having unlimited members of staff focused on particular groups of people 24/7 globally. It really works well when you do it well. Second, don't just rely on traditional channels. Different types of member need different channels, and they're better suited to different type of comms anyway. So a good platform enables multi-channel and allows members to choose which channels they want to consume by. And the third is smart engagement, which really adds another dimension to this. It really helps you focus on driving key groups along your member journeys so that you're starting to deliver your business strategy, the different goals that you've got. Examples of where this works and what it does. So Askell, I showed you their mobile apps earlier, but they've been a customer for something like 7 or 8 years now. Started with a membership CRM. Then we provided their website, in fact 2 websites, where there's a general one and then there's the training specific CPD driving website, web portal, and then that's been fronted as well by the apps I showed you for events and for news feeds. So that's a great comms method, and that's just driven up engagement by a large percentage. Institutes of Leadership Management, their key issue was they had an aging membership population and lots of students that didn't become members. So we focused on that with them. In the first 2 years, they'd grown membership by 21%, which is good, but a big contribution of that was activating students and getting them into membership, which grew by 23%. So really helps you focus on your goals and start to deliver your strategy. Bar Council, great example here. They had an awful lot of manual workarounds in their registration and authorization of barristers. In the first year, by automating that, it saved them £148,000, and those are their figures. They volunteered those to us, which is a great payback. Strategic flexibility. So again, core strategy of a lot of organisations, but by being able to change from an annual renewal cycle, just say we renew everyone in October, to renewing on the joining date and spreading it across the year, and also allowing people to, because they're a global organisation, allowing people to pay in their own currency, then AIMA were able to basically drive their retention rates up. And I've also talked about, you can see they've also got, AIMA's, the same organisation's got networking forums, which drive their engagement further as well, because there's a lot of participation and discussion groups and collaboration with peer-to-peer networking. So that can be a great other channel which you can start to collate content from as well. There's some great examples in the States where that's become monetized. And finally, and we have no percentage figures on this, but a general report across a lot of our customers is that staff retention is a lot better, because no longer are they fighting the system to do their job, the system's supporting them in doing their job a lot better. So no workarounds, no data transfer, just get on with what your role is. And starting, if individuals are able to do their job better, the department functions better, and then the organisation meets its goals and thus its strategy. So with that, I'll hand back over to Alan, and we'll summarise what we've run through quite fast in the last 40 minutes or so, 45 minutes. But over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Steve. That's really helpful. So the bit I'd like to summarise just very quickly, because I want to get to the Q&A questions, is key strategies for fighting back. You remember we talked to over 200 membership professionals. What we did as part of that is we cross-referenced what they were doing, what their strategies were for fighting back against what some perceived as a crisis in membership, and we cross-referenced that with their outcomes. So how successful was doing this or this compared to growing membership and building retention, and how impactful was failing to do this. We also looked at that with problems that they were having. And what we found was that there were 3 main indicators for success, for being able to combat any kind of decline in membership. And actually, many of these organizations then went on to have more success than they've had in the past. So the three main areas are, and it's really underpinned by the fact that once you can stop fighting with your systems, once you're now enabled to be able to think and enact your strategy, what are you going to do with all this new power and all of this new time on your hands and all of this energy you've got to be creative instead of just doing the basics? Well, so one of the main things that we found where organizations were successful is that they were able to focus on content. They were able to be authoritative as a membership body. No one else can be as authoritative as you can as the membership body. People who are selling bits and pieces of training, etc., they're not looking after the whole career of the person. They're not showing their depth of knowledge of that particular industry. So content is king, which is a bit gender specific, but nonetheless gets to the point of spending as much of your time and energy as possible creating material that shows that you are a leader in that sector, getting really personal. And actually, we found organizations sending fewer emails, but with much greater take up. So not so much spray and pray, but real relevance, showing added value and the reason to be there, and also reflecting hard real world things. Members are interested in their career development. They're interested in making more money. If you're showing that you're a valued partner in helping with those things, then of course there's an inbuilt reason to maintain the relationship. And then of course there's making it really easy, so that whatever channel people want to engage through, whether it's an app, whether it's through WhatsApp, whether it's through social, or a very relevant and personalized website, that's all available to them. So those were the three headings under which organizations were able to mount their fight back. Okay, what I'd really like to get to is the audience Q&A in the last 10 minutes. We've had some really good questions coming through, so thank you so much for that. And actually, I'm going to ask Ahmed, if you don't mind. Ahmed is the managing director of Smart Impact. I'm going to put some of these questions to both Steve and Ahmed. So we've had one question coming through saying how many membership bodies are now using apps? How prevalent in the membership world are we seeing apps? Because for 20 years everyone was talking about website integration. How much are people now talking about apps? Could I put that to both of you, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi everybody. I responded quickly to Tony, but mobile apps offer more modern functionality. So, things like notifications on your phone, you can subscribe to something, and then when it happens, you get like something popping on your phone saying there is new news article, this event is now available for booking, now you can renew your membership. All of these things, more proactive messaging to your members. It is not available if you have only website or like your back-end system. You need mobile app to provide such functionality, and that's why a lot of membership organizations, they tend to go to the mobile apps now, and also everyone is used now sitting on the sofa, doing everything they want, via mobile apps. So it's quite common, and people used to it. So it's like it gives you like more modern look to your services, and make it more modern to your members.
What I'm seeing as well, Ahmed, is that first of all, yes, most people are getting through websites through their phone. But also the cost of apps, and I'm not going to ask any software company to comment on this, but we've seen that in talking to lots of software membership organizations, the cost of apps has come down hugely. So it used to be that it would cost a six-figure sum to kick the ball on membership apps in the past, and now we're seeing if you're doing a modern website with HTML5 and a responsive website, it doesn't actually cost that much more to add an app onto that. So I won't ask you to comment on that. Just in the interest of questions that people have posed, one question has been, we've just spent a ton of money on our branding on our website. Do I need to replace all of that in order to properly integrate it to the CRM? Steve, could I ask you that question, please?
Do you need to replace the whole website?
Yes.
So I would say no. I mean, we're going to cover this in a minute, and it's also picking up from a question with James Shears about some of what we have works, some of it doesn't. What do we have to do? Do we replace or start again? So we'll cover a health check facility in a minute. But I would say it's always worth looking at how well this is meeting your goals. So our method isn't to just say, look, throw everything out and start again. There'll be a number of things that work very well. And where we talked about that platform, that can be an integration of various of the legacy systems that are already in place. You don't have to replace everything, and you don't have to replace it all at the beginning. So you can evolve over time, take things out, put new releases in, or replace systems over time, replace your finance system as you go. So with the website, if the branding is what you like, you can replace the engine underneath it and keep branding. Or you could essentially, if the engine underneath it is good and it can be integrated, then we can work with that. And also with the web portals that we showed you, so the Royal Statistical Society type application, we can embed that into websites anyway and make it look the same branding. So you don't have to change your website, you can just change the way you interact with specific members to deliver specific content through a member portal. So I hope
Fantastic.
that answers that.
Yeah, no, that's great, thank you. And then I just want to rattle through a couple more before we wrap up, if that's okay. So this one for Ahmed, if you don't mind. So one question has been: we used to have specialist tools for things like CPD, education, and events, very common tools for membership organizations. How feasible is it now to replace those with a single tool that has those areas of functionality?
This is the beauty of the platform concept. So platform, you can think about it as your mobile phone, and you get apps to do different things. So you can get an app to manage events, one app for CPD, and so on. So this is the concept of the modern business platforms. You get the platform, and you get the functionality you need at the right time. So while you can replace all of them at once, but also gradually you can replace the core areas, so like membership management, events management, and then CPD and learning management systems. If you have already invested in one, then this can be integrated with the platform, and in a future stage you can replace it. So you don't have to replace everything at once. It is just like, gradually you can pick the most problematic area that you have, invest in this area now, and then in the future gradually move everything to one place.
Fantastic, fantastic. All right, and then the last question I'm going to ask is a little bit of a sad question from one of the delegates anonymously, and this is a bit of a how long is a piece of string. It's how do I persuade my management team? So this poor person is saying, how do I persuade my management team that we need to do something significant to make a difference? And if you don't mind, Ahmed or Steve, I'll respond to that one. The tack I've tended to take on that is to really focus on two things. One is the benefits of the change, nothing to do with the technology, nothing to do with getting a shinier version of what you've got. It's the benefits that you'll be able to achieve from the change in terms of empowering you as an organization and responding to the challenges that you've got. So approach the management team from that kind of strategic direction. The second thing is the negative case, which is to say, if we don't do something significant here, we're actually going to carry on circling the drain with reducing membership numbers, reducing take-up, and retention, and no one's working here to just manage decline. So I've tended to find that tackling it at that kind of business and strategic level, and then the technology becomes an enabling factor after that. Great, we've got a couple more minutes. Steve, could I hand over back to you just to go through the wrap up, please? You mentioned the health check, if you don't mind.
In answer to some of the questions we were asked, how do I know, do I replace what I've got, or do I embellish it and evolve it into a new direction? So we've just published this new technology, which is a health check. It's a simple 5-minute survey asking questions around what do you want to do and how well are you supported on it. and then it produces a tailored report at the end of it. We'll send out the links to this. You're free to use it. We don't know the results that it directly produces, but hopefully it's thought-provoking and starts to give you some idea on that journey. If you we'll also be sending out the links to this recording, so please feel free to share that with your colleagues as well and delve in. We had a lot to cover, to delve into parts of that again. And also we're running a series of events, so we'll be publishing more and more on our website. But the next one is likely to be focused specifically around CPD education for institutes and learning platforms. So that covers some of the stuff we've been asked as well. And we'll be covering a number of other areas over the next few months, including a lot more about the Smart Engagement app, and a lot more around things like fundraising and other parts that are what a number of our associations also do. So please keep an eye on our website, and we'll be reaching out to you to publicise those. But you're welcome back. The content's different each time. And with that, can I just say thanks very much. We're just about on time, which is great. And any questions you have, please come back to me. There's my email contact there. And also we'll go through any of the remaining questions in the chat we weren't able to answer in this session. We'll come back to you via email on that as well. So hope that's been hope that's been useful for you. Thanks very much for attending, and hope to talk to you again soon. Bye bye.
Thanks, everybody.